This video takes a closer look at assessing connections. We'll focus on NCEA Level 2, but the ideas will apply across all three levels. The curriculum gives us some idea as to the intent of the standard. As we teach language and literature texts, we'll be inviting students to think about the connections they're making between oral, visual and written texts. The Ideas Achievement Objective at Level 7 talks about a range of contexts, and this invites us to think about how we differentiate those contexts according to the language, culture and identity of the learners in front of us. Of course, the standard clarifies what needs to be assessed, and the English clarifications page provides further information. While many students will, they do not have to compare texts in order to meet the standard. The fact that they have the same connection in common is enough to pull it together. Good responses may well make some kind of statement that compares the treatment of the connection between the text, and while this may help to make the analysis more convincing or perceptive, it's not the only way. They might still analyse the two treatments individually, and the juxtaposition of those analyses is enough to imply a relationship. Students can still meet the standard and could conceivably even get M or E without explicitly comparing. Let's remember also that we're not talking about the old theme study. Significant connections, as Explanatory Note 3 tells us, may relate to purpose and audience, ideas and language features. We often think about a thematic connection, but what about the other options? Looking at satire and advertising may allow history and media studies students to bring some of their learning into the study. Students could find connections in the language features used in hip-hop, New Zealand poetry, war poetry, or the use of te reo in New Zealand literature. Of course, the language features in advertising could also be looked at. Structure invites us to think about connections in terms of perhaps poetry, verse libre, sonnets, oral texts and the way they're structured, any of the texts we've mentioned. As English teachers, we know how important the way in which texts are chosen is in terms of engaging students. This is where we can differentiate context. Students read and listen to and view a range of texts in English and other subjects, as well as outside of school. We want students to choose texts that will extend them, as well as texts they are interested in, or about which they may already have a degree of expertise or knowledge. Finding the balance between student choice and teacher direction is likely to be the key. Oral texts may allow students to respond to texts they listen to, or pursue issues they're studying elsewhere. Don't forget documentary and TV as visual texts, and written texts might include some of the old standards, as well as more contemporary treatments of a similar theme. And finally, the conditions of assessment give some guidance about good assessment practice. How do we build opportunities to discuss, explain and analyse connections in our teaching programs? Where do students develop their own ideas and responses? What opportunities do they have to use their own language, identity and culture as a lens through which to view connections across texts that are meaningful to them? This video was brought to you by the Te Tapawai o Rehua Consortium, Mau ki te Ako, and is part of the Secondary Student Achievement Professional Learning and Development Initiative, which is funded by the Ministry of Education. Hei kona mai, and thanks for listening.